Hi guys and welcome back. Today I'm working on a digital illustration and I want to talk a little bit today about getting ideas and how to formulate more complicated illustrations based on different inspirations that you can gather from. And this is something that I've been thinking a lot of lately because I feel like I've taken myself down a path that I'm not really as intentional as I used to be. And I want to be more directional with what I am choosing that inspires my pieces and also a very cohesive theme that I have through everything that I create. Where right now I feel like I've let myself wander away from my core desires for what I want to create with my artwork. But first, a little bit just about the piece and a little bit about what I'm doing. I am working in Photoshop as usual, and you probably all already know that, but I work with the Cintiq 13HD, and I have a link in the description if you're curious what exactly that tablet looks like. But I am working on a very huge illustration. This time I decided to do it at 11 by 14 inches, and it's at 600 dpi, so it has very, very crisp lines when I zoom in. That's how I can get really precise details and really smooth, graceful line work. And most computers really can't handle files that big. It wasn't until recently that I got one that could actually handle that, but I am getting the most out of it today. So I actually will have prints available of this piece, and I will have it available in an extra large size, the original 14 by 11 size that I end up creating it in. So that's pretty exciting, but I'll talk more about that at the end. But yeah, a little bit about ideas and just the general what I want my pieces to be. I used to have a lot more creepy, I guess you could say, elements in my work. I like to incorporate things that are a little bit more on the surreal or the creepy or the scary side and mix it with things that are less so. So in the end, I end up with something that feels very approachable while still having that hint of interest to it. And I think I've kind of wandered away from that a little bit, which is absolutely not a bad thing in my opinion. Working through different inspirations and letting yourself take different paths on what you're interested at that time is 100% how you get better, how you improve, how you find what you're interested in. But I was working with pieces that I wasn't being as intentional with. I wasn't choosing them. It was more like they were just happening. And I want to feel very in control with the path that I'm taking and ultimately with the portfolio that I am creating with each piece. And I think that's the thing that's the most frustrating for me right now is when I create a piece, I feel okay about that individual piece. But then when I look at my full portfolio and I realize that I feel like I don't have the look that I want it to be, and I can't instantly change my portfolio. I can't create 5 new illustrations in one night. So that is much more of a slow process, and a lot of times I won't rethink what I'm going to paint next. I just go right back into autopilot zone, and then I create another piece that I'm not 100% happy with. And I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to be much more conscientious about each choice that I'm making. But that brings us back a little bit to the topic at hand, and that's coming up with ideas and inspirations. And I'd like to get something that's a little bit more curated as far as what I use for my inspiration board. Right now I have a Pinterest page that I just like, tons of different artwork, and I also have ones for photography. And they are all over the place. And I think that there is a very specific style that I'd like to move towards. And I honestly am not 100% sure on what that is yet. But the more that I gather different photos and ideas and artwork that other people have created, the more I will be sure about what I want to create. But I would like to create something that has my inspirations not just from artwork but also from specific themes that I want to have in my pieces and specific icons. And there are a lot of things that I find really inspiring and interesting and things that I can do a lot with visually, but I don't always think about them. And today I'm working with a space theme, which is one that I have always loved. I've always loved sci-fi. I've always really been interested in the vastness of space. And I have done a piece recently that was space themed, but it was much softer and sweeter. And I feel like it was missing a certain grip to it that I would have preferred. So this is a little bit more me trying to get a handle on that subject and aim it a little bit more into the direction that I want to go. And for this one, I talked through what my idea was right at the beginning. When I was doing these really loose pencil thumbnails, I was trying to figure it out. I was trying different ideas to get to this final idea, this final concept. And that really helped. It's something that I've used to do a lot more when I was in school, and I had to do that. And I mention this all the time because it's something that I really need to be doing, but I don't. But I don't do these thumbnails as much, and I don't explore other options to get to this look that I want. And when I do that, when I really dive in and I analyze each thing that I'm putting in there and why am I putting it in there and why is it shaped that way and why is it even there at all, as opposed to maybe a different icon or a different theme, that is actually when I feel most creatively energized, is when I'm thinking through these problems. I'm problem solving. And that's what's so interesting to me. And it's a key element to my process to getting a really good piece, but it's one that I have kind of abandoned since I've graduated on accident, and I didn't really mean to, but as I was really diving in on this one and I was talking with someone about what I wanted to do with it, that's when I realized how much I love that aspect of it. And I really need to do more of that because that's what helped me feel tied to this piece and excited for the final result. And I wanted to see where it would take me and how I would get there. And yeah, it feels good to realize something that used to be there and was incredibly inspiring to me and exciting. And to realize that that's a thing that I can immediately fix. I can start doing that right now. I can start thinking through every illustration much more thoroughly and analyze it and figure all of the problems out before I start, because it's really actually very fun to put together an illustration and think through it like a puzzle that you want to show the emotion and show that story that you want through it. But let's talk a little bit about what actually inspired this particular piece. And this is kind of fun when I can track back what exactly inspired it and all the different stimuli that gathered together and created this piece for me in my head. Because a lot of my pieces lately, like I mentioned, have been very simple. Like I think of something because I need to think of something and then I create it, but I don't really delve into each element that I'm incorporating into it and why am I putting it there. So when I have a lot more things that I'm gathering together from things that I've experienced, things that I've looked at, or just plain enjoyed or been inspired by, those are the ones that I find most exciting to work on, and the paintings that ultimately I love the most, because they do feel a lot more connected to me and my inspirations. But this time I actually did really remember what ended up taking me on this path to this final piece, because a lot of times I do not remember. But I was looking up old vacation photos that I had of when we went to a dam in Oregon, and there was this room that you'd walk down, and it was at the bottom of the dam. You could see through the window underwater, and there was all these lampreys suctioned to the window. And I definitely suggest you look those up if you don't know what they look like. But they have these like round mouths that have all these little teeth, and they just flow in the current of the water. And I loved them the second I saw them there, and we took a bunch of pictures of them. So I was looking at those and I had that going on in my head. And I've also been listening to a ton of the band Starset, and I love the icons that they have in their songs. That is very like spacey and scientific, and I love listening for these little cues that they have in their songs for that. So I had those two different inspirations going on in my head, and it was time to start sketching, and I was sketching out thumbnails, and those kind of collided and ended up turning into a space girl with a very large space helmet, and then these toxic space lampreys suction cup to her helmet and then releasing this poisonous gas into her helmet. And in my head, the story that I have is that she is almost hallucinating. She's seeing these beautiful things and she has this almost delighted expression, but she's actually being poisoned by these horrible space lampreys. But I really loved coming to the final result of this one and gathering these very, very different subject matter. I think that those things are what gets me really inspired when I can combine lots of different elements that I love. And then the final steps of just adding little embellishments and highlights, that was actually one of the biggest steps for this piece because there were so many embellishments for it. I was adding shines and changing the color of the line work itself, and it was really fun to go in there and add all these different things because that's one of the steps that I love doing the most. But I did end up having 2 layers, I believe, where it was the color of her visor. The first one was, I believe, a hard light, and hard light, it has a luminosity over the black as well, so it'll lighten even the dark line work. So that's what I wanted to have for a visor. And then I had one that just harmonizes the color of it to more of a purple color, and that's a great way if you want to like color block colors in. You can have a layer on top that turns everything to that color. That way you can have the values show through, and then you can control the level of color that they have below that. But that was one of the elements that helped me reel it back in and take control of where the colors were actually happening. And that is it for today. I know I was a little bit rambly. Hopefully you'll forgive me. It is very late, but I did finish this piece and I loved working on her actually. So that was nice. I like pieces that make me feel okay about staying up super late to finish them. But like I mentioned, I do have prints of her available. So I have the very large 11 by 14. I also have the normal 8.5 by 11 and the small 5 by 7s available. And I'll have a link in the description as well as in the end card that'll take you to my art shop. And I do post every Wednesdays and Saturdays. So I'll see you guys at my next video.